college across states. The Electoral College representation is based on how many people are living in your state, maybe up to 10 years prior to your voting day. And that includes people who don't vote, so it includes children, it includes non-citizens.
Other factors like voter suppression can also have an impact.
There's so many ways that it can be not representative of the national popular vote, the national popular preferences over president.
The highly disputed election in 2000 between Al Gore and George Bush was the first electoral inversion in over a century, with Gore receiving around 500,000 more votes than Bush.
It's clear that Al Gore had won the popular vote. Whether or not he won the electoral vote depended on who was declared the winner in Florida. Then Governor Bush was declared the winner early on, and they contested the outcome.
The margin between candidates in Florida was divided by only about 500 votes, and confusing ballots in some counties triggered a recount. After 5 weeks, Florida was eventually decided in favor of Bush after the recount was halted by the Supreme Court, putting him at 271 electoral votes, even though he had a lower amount of the popular vote.
I'm thankful for America, and thankful that we are able to resolve our electoral differences in a peaceful way.
If we had had a national popular vote in that election, one thing that certainly would have been true is if the vote outcomes had come the same way they had, there wouldn't have been a need for a recount, because Gore won that election in the national popular vote by a very, very large margin.
There are concerns that some of these factors may come into play in 2020's election.
If the count in a state were to be slow and disputed and the outcome murky, that a state legislature might decide to step in and say, look, this election isn't producing clarity, we've got too many spoiled ballots, and thus we are going to choose a slate of electors by ourselves. Within the realm of constitutional possibility, and it could happen in November.
Inversions can also happen in more normal elections that don't involve legal battles or recounts.
2016 was a very clear-cut case where the popular vote did not match the Electoral College vote. Because it's a winner-take-all system, because of the distribution of Democrats and Republicans across the country, we saw in 2016 Hillary Clinton winning 3 million more votes by the popular vote, but they were in states where, at a certain point in time, it didn't put her over the edge or really matter anymore.
A majority of Americans would prefer moving to a national popular vote, but there's a split in political party support.
We're at a moment now where a lot of people are rethinking whether or not the system actually works, considering you can actually look at 11 states and get over 270, which is the magic number.
The leading alternative to the Electoral College is the National Popular Vote Compact. This would require states to award their electors to the winner of the national popular vote rather than the popular state vote. So all of the state's electoral votes would go toward the national popular candidate. But changing the electoral system nationwide is really challenging. At least 700 constitutional amendments have been introduced to Congress to abolish or reform the Electoral College, but none have been successful.
Why we still have it comes down to a number of different factors. One is that the Constitution is very difficult to amend.
Inversions are nearly impossible to predict and can't be prevented in the current electoral system.
There's nothing you can do short of moving to a national popular vote that will stop inversions from happening.
The future of the Electoral College is not clear, but mismatches between the electoral and popular votes will likely continue to happen.
If the races continue to be close, as they have been in the last couple of decades, then we should expect inversions to continue happening as they have happened in the last couple of decades.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
Everyone's underwater.
24/7 streaming news source. ABC News.
Si tu n'écoutes pas, je vais te tirer les oreilles.
Breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video. Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling. From ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes. Go there now. With ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw, live. No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it.
That's frightening.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And the magic of this, it's free. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live, streaming everywhere, right to you.
ABC News honored winner of 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, including the most prestigious honor, Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news choice.
Hi everyone, thanks for streaming with us on Your Voice, Your Vote, The Breakdown. I'm Diane Macedo in New York.
And I'm Terry Moran in Washington, D.C. with just 4 days left in the campaign. And state officials in Michigan are explaining to voters that final election results may not come on Tuesday night, since all the clerks who count the votes there cannot start counting or tabulating results until Election Day. And that may be the case in many states.
President Trump and former Vice President Biden are packing in as many campaign events as possible, including dueling rallies in Minnesota today. Biden was asked whether he's concerned about holding the state Hillary Clinton won 4 years ago. Take a listen.
No, I'm not concerned. We're going to be in Iowa. We're going to be in Wisconsin. So if I'm going to stop in Minnesota, I don't take anything for granted. We're going to work for every single vote up to the last minute.
More than 84 million voters, have already cast their ballots nationwide. That's a record by far for early voting. And in Texas,
Aide-moi.
a new battleground state this year, at least 9 million people have already voted. And that's more than the number of votes cast in the Lone Star State 4 years ago. ABC's Marcus Moore joins us now from Dallas with the latest. Marcus, it seems like suburban Dallas, one of those places where early voting is really spiking. What does that tell you? What are you hearing from voters there?
Well, yeah, hey, Terry, first of all, it's absolutely remarkable when you consider the number of votes that have already been cast in this election. And in a state that historically, relatively speaking, has had lower voter turnout. That is not the case this year, this election cycle. And I was in Rockwall, Texas, earlier today, which is a city about 30 miles, 30 minutes east of Dallas. And I was talking to voters there. And one woman told me she voted early because for a couple of reasons. Number one, she wanted to avoid the crowds, and she was also concerned about mailing in her ballot because of everything she's been hearing about potential delays and there not being a guarantee. She said that her vote would actually count. And so, Terry, that's one of the reasons why she voted as soon as she could. And on the first day of early voting here in Texas, she said she saw lines wrapped around the building in her city, and so she waited to go the next day. And with COVID, with this strong grip on the country right now, she certainly does not want to go on actual election day, fearing the large crowds on that day.
Makes good sense for her. So also go on to the other end of the spectrum, more than 1 million young voters between the ages of 18 and 19, the youngest of voters really, have already voted in Texas. How important is that youth vote? How might it break down?
Well, that youth vote, Terry, is critical for any campaign, and we've seen the youth vote pick up. In 2018, it was during the midterm elections. It was a significant part of the electorate, and here in Texas, both campaigns are trying to seize on that young vote, really for the future of their party and their campaigns in the years to come. And we have seen enthusiasm on the part of young people here, and some of the issues that appear to be driving young people to the polls this election cycle are issues with the climate change and also the economy and certainly social issues.
Je pense que ce n'est pas urgent.
I've seen young people all across this country taking to
Je
the
pense que
streets,
ce n'est
and
pas
they want
urgent.
their voices to be heard on November 3rd.
No question about it. Now, Senator Kamala Harris, vice presidential candidate for the Democrats, she's on the campaign trail. They're in Texas today. That's a bold move in the final days. Where's she going, and why?
It is a bold move, Terry. I mean, consider, you know this, the last time a major campaign, Democratic candidate for president visited Texas in the final stretch was back in 1992, and that was Bill Clinton. And so that gives you a sense of how significant it is that Senator Kamala Harris would be coming here to Texas on a day like today. She was speaking in Fort Worth. That was her first
Je
stop in
pense que ce
Texas
n'est pas
earlier
urgent.
today. She spoke to a crowd of about 3,000 people practicing social distancing there, and she's expected to go to the Rio Grande Valley, which is in the southern tip of Texas, and also make a stop in Houston today. So a busy day for the Biden-Harris camp, and certainly an extraordinary moment for anyone who's followed politics here in the state of Texas, because for so many decades, Terry, Texas for the GOP has been a foregone conclusion. And when you look at the analysis on the polls so far in this election cycle, it seems like that gap has been closing, and that the race here will be incredibly close.
That's it. Marcus Moore there in Texas, which ABC News is now put in the toss-up category. Thanks.
And let's bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein for more on these early voting numbers. Rick, first let's talk about Texas. As Marcus said, since the 90s, it's been considered a red state, pretty much foregone conclusion. And now, as
J'ai
Terry
mal au
mentioned,
ventre
ABC's
depuis
just
ce
moved
matin.
Texas from lean Republican to a toss-up. Why do Democrats have a real shot this time around?
I'll tell you, I've talked to strategists in both parties, and they are shocked by what they are seeing in Texas in terms of the early turnout numbers. And frankly, they're not entirely sure what to make of it. Obviously, there were people that didn't vote last time. They're already above their turnout from 4 years ago. That would include some group of likely Democrats, of Biden voters in more liberal parts of the state, including a large Latino population. That's where you see Kamala Harris really trying to work it today. But the flip side of that is that there are probably a lot of new Trump voters in there as well. So it's hard to really define what it means beyond the unbelievable enthusiasm, the interest in voting. There certainly isn't any apathy, and the Biden campaign sees an
Aidez-moi, s'il vous
opportunity.
plaît.
They see it in their internal numbers, and they see it in these early voting numbers. They see something come on the board that they really didn't expect to have.
And I want to ask you about what is going to happen election night, Rick, and that is clearly that for a lot of people, we won't know the results of the state by state on
Aidez-moi,
election
s'il vous
night.
plaît.
That has been a tradition, but it's really a function of the electronic age. So Michigan's saying they aren't going to have results on election night. Chief anchor George Stephanopoulos, our college, he shot a TikTok video to explain to
Arrête
people what's
de
going on. Take a listen.
Tirer les cheveux de Marie.
To count these mail-in ballots that are coming in overwhelming numbers, particularly in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that don't even start counting those votes until election day itself. Now, that doesn't mean we won't have a good idea of who's going to be the next president on election night. I think that's very possible, particularly if Joe Biden wins in a state like Florida or North Carolina.
But this is the message that everybody's trying to get out. This is going to be a different kind of election night. Given that we might not have a winner, what can we expect to
Je
see?
pense que ce n'est pas urgent.
Yeah, I think it's critical to understand that just because you don't necessarily have a winner doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong. That there's been vast processes that have changed, and in many ways the laws are still catching up to these new processes. And in a paradoxical way, all these early votes actually make it more likely that you won't have a result in those states because there is likely to be some kind of a backlog. But yes, you will get a real good sense of where the electorate is going. We're expecting to have significant vote pretty early in the night.
J'ai mal au
Florida,
ventre depuis
North
ce matin.
Carolina, Georgia, a little bit later in the night out of states like Iowa and Ohio. So regardless of what goes on in the upper Midwest, you get a sense of where the race is going. And frankly, if Joe Biden carries any of those deep red states that I just mentioned, not to mention Texas, he is almost certainly on a path to the presidency. The flip of it is if he doesn't carry them, President Trump carries them, then we are likely waiting on Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
By the way, I think it was the social media team's biggest victory today that they got George Stephanopoulos to do a TikTok video. They are all celebrating very hard right now. But Rick, in terms of the the finish line now. The last-minute campaign push is on. So where are Trump and Biden heading this weekend, and what do they need to do in those key states?
They'll be all over the place, and it's so striking to see how the campaign comes full circle, because you'll see a lot out of those states that I mentioned, that little wall, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. We know the Biden campaign is going to end with a lot of stumping those last 24, 36 hours in Pennsylvania. All the campaign folks and the surrogates. Tomorrow is a big day because Barack Obama and Joe Biden will reunite for the first time. This campaign is only trying to get out the vote in Michigan, and the president, man, I even lost track of how many rallies he has carried in the states. Carolina, and up by the upper Midwest, and a lot of Pennsylvania, a lot of Wisconsin, a lot of Michigan. It really comes back to those big three, with the president continuing to have to play defense in other places like Iowa. But I'll tell you, the stamina that it takes and the number of campaign events that this president will have done, these big, massive rallies in the age of COVID, stands without precedent.
All right, ABC News Political Director Rick Klein. Thanks, Rick. And be sure to tune in to our full coverage on Election Day starting at 7 a.m. Eastern. And George Stephanopoulos will anchor election night coverage with our political team at 7 p.m. Eastern. It all happens right here on ABC News Live, and you can find out how to vote in your state at 538.com.